So welcome everybody. And this is wonderful to see so many people here tonight at the Electric Mermaid. For those of you who don't know about the Electric Mermaid, you can see a picture of her there on Char's window. It's that glowing gold mermaid hovering in the back part of Char's Landing, which is the local social house in Port Alberni where we're coming to you from tonight, which I should mention is also on the unceded territories of the Petcheseth and the Sishat First Nations people, whom we are very grateful to for sharing their land with us. And we're going to be doing a lot of reading tonight, but a lot of people, but I think it's going to go pretty smoothly. We're going to start off with some open micers, and then we're going to have a featured reading by Theresa Shea, and then another open micer, and then we'll go to a featured reading of poems from an anthology that Ian Cognito and Pat Smeckle put together. Old Bones and Battered Bookends, so we'll get to that, and then we'll finish up with some more open micers after that. So as I said, we're coming to you from Char's Landing, and we are forever grateful and indebted to Char, who's putting up with the stress of organizing this technologically and doing this on her own time. And I just want to remind people that if anybody feels generous to want to give a donation to Char to keep her afloat through these difficult times, she's always grateful to receive it, and we're always happy to have that happen, because we're hoping that when COVID is over, we'll still have a real place to go and have our cultural center here in Port Alberni. So you can just e-transfer to etransfer@charslanding.com, and I'll get Jackie maybe to throw that up, or Karl in the chat on the side. For those of you who might not be that familiar with Zoom, down at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little chat with the word chat underneath it. If you just click on that, you'll get a chat box option pop up, and you can have the chat going on the side. And up in the top right-hand corner under View, if you click on that, you get a drop-down menu, and you have a choice of which way you want to see things. If you click on Gallery View, you will get a whole bunch of thumbnails. If you click on Speaker View, you'll get a great big speaker on your screen and the chat on the side. So poke around and make yourself comfortable in this format. Let's face it, it's the best we have at this time in this world we live in. And I'm very grateful that we still have it, and that we can at least connect in this way and share our work with each other, and appreciate each other and inspire each other to keep running, which can be a difficult thing to do when things become challenging. So I'm not gonna linger on too much longer. Just a reminder to you are muted by Char. Everybody's muted, and so when it is your turn to read, I'll call on you to read, and you'll just have to click on your mute button if Char or Karl doesn't do that for you, to make sure that you're unmuted before you start reading. And open micers, I believe we've cut it down to 4-minute slots for tonight. Is that right, Karl?
I think they're short. We did 5 minutes. If they can do 4, that'd be great. We never really did say that, and I should have.
Okay. So we did say 5. So if you're going to 5, that's okay. But if you can be done in 4, that's all the better. We don't want to keep anybody up past their bedtime here. So
that's right, because there's people from Ontario all the way from Ottawa.
So there we go, and it's 3 hours later, and they're going to get weary.
Yeah, they're ready for bed.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, so let's get started then, and I'm going to begin by inviting Victoria Roscoe-Roumanis to read. She's a local Port Alberni poet and prose writer. What have you got for us tonight, Victoria? And you're muted still, so unmute yourself.
I just had 2 poems, and it should be just under 5 minutes.
Right.
So the first one is Desolate. That tree is going to fall. Weight distribution cannot prevent it. Rings and rings and rings and rings, denoting age like wrinkles. Everything gravitates to this down falling time, when limbs and body hit the earth, breaking, twirling, crashing. Precious moments hacked away until nothing remains, lost forever. No mourners, no legacy, no peace. Was it worth the struggle, the giving, the caring? No one to care for, no one to care. And the rain falls, but washes nothing away. Do please wash it away. Make the mind clear again. At least let some glimmer make it through, just enough to cling onto with worn, bleeding fingers. Searching for a reason for anything at all. Is there anything, anyone, anywhere? Hold on, that tree is going to fall. First one. And my second one is called Lovers Parting. For some time, the storage box had haunted a corner of the room. She had been aware of its presence, yet rarely given a glance. She was not ready to pack away those special treasures the box would store. Treasures which were as fragile as a snowflake upon her hair, comforting as the sun's warming touch on her skin. She observed the intricacies of these moments. She had known they were not hers to keep, yet she had imagined they would be eternally hers. She still needed to hold them close, treasuring their familiarity. The fear of emptiness without them called her. She could not put them away, not yet. The painful reality that they were not hers to keep tugged at her heart, begging her to let go. Beautiful as they were, they could not bring happiness. Sadly and deliberately, she lovingly wrapped each treasure, placing them tenderly into the storage box. Overcome by the knowledge, she would never hold them again. A few still evaded the wrap as she tried to convince herself that it would help the pain if she kept them. She needed to be strong, to pull away. At last, the box was full. The lid was in place, but not locked down. A strong desire to take a last look overpowered her, even with the knowledge of the pain it would cause. She slowly reached into the box, retrieving a few of its riches, letting the covering which protected them fall away. Once more, running her fingers over their beauty. As she did so, overpowering obstacles crowded, diminishing the intensity of the pleasure. To delay now would only destroy perfection. In tears, she made a final effort to accomplish her only option. Salted tears, soaking the crumpled wrapping paper. Finally, the lock was engaged. From now on, she would only hold the memory in her mind's eye as the trees hold on to the fading leaves of summer. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for starting us off there, Victoria.
Okay.
All right. And just mentioned there was a little bit of ambient noise going on when you move your paper. So I just caution other readers when you're reading, just try and not rustle anything because it can kind of crowd out over your voice. But we still heard you fine, Victoria. It was good. Thank you. All right, our next reader is Bill Engleson from Denman Island, who's now disappeared off my screen, but I'm going to click the arrow and see if I can find him. Bill, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, take it away.
Okay, Hell is a Holiday, with apologies to Mickey Spillane. Velma had begged me to take a run up country to look for Hedda Gobbler, a friend's wild chick. I could never say no to her. Hedda had apparently hooked up with Dom Fricker, a rogue domestic who had absconded from some horrendous bird factory in the southern foothills. I'd heard about such places, huge factory farms where the inmates were cloistered in stacks and force-fed God knows what to puff them up enough to be succulent tasting after death. If I'd ever caught up with Dom, I hoped he'd share some of his stories. You had to keep learning about life waiting horrors, or you were toast, or maybe stuffing. Even though Christmas wasn't the best of times to be a main course in plain sight, I was resigned to leave the city behind and bring in the new year on the road. Before I could take off in search of Hedda, however, I needed to get my facts straight. Velma told me that her friend, Lana Gobbler, lived on the outskirts of town in an abandoned chicken coop. Lana had fallen on hard times a few months earlier and was squatting in the semi-rurals. She doesn't have a phone, Turk. You'll just have to take your chances that she's home. Don't worry, babe, I assured her. My whole shtick is taking chances. With that bubble of bravado still stretching believability, I headed out to question Lana. I set out after dark on December 22nd. It was feather freezing cold, but happily dry. I made my way through the shadowy dark side streets and back lanes. Almost from the get-go, I sensed I had a fiendish feline on my tail. Even with my taser, I knew I was the sitting duck for any of the sly, deadly, and grotesque urban vampire tabbies who hunted with abandon wherever they wanted to. They were especially known to ride on the roofs of cars, waiting for just the right moment when a weak motorist, wrapped up in the hubbub of driving and living, forgot to be on his guard. I continued steering into the night, easing out of the city and slowly, gradually heading for the inner rurals. The residents of the inner rurals felt that they had the best of both worlds, poised as they were between country, the outer rurals, and city, the inner urban. I thought they had the worst of both, but try telling them that. Not only did they have people all around them, forceful zoning bylaws demanding their giant turfs of sod must be kept cleaved at all times. Those same bylaws demanded that their crew-cut foliage always look as green as emeralds. To achieve this, they often had to accent the color with chemicals. Don't get me wrong, I like green rolling hills, trim, neat, looking like a real proper lawn. It all appealed to me. Raised as a backyard pet on a decent-sized city lot, surrounded by concrete and high-rises, where my kind was not permitted to go, my life had been tolerable. Within the relatively large yard where I was raised by my people, I was more or less content with my lot. They showed me a lot of love, as much as this turkey could handle anyways, which was quite a lot, really. They accepted me for who I was. They were vegetarians. I discovered this after eavesdropping one summer afternoon on an eye-opening culinary discussion they had with our barbecuing neighbors. Well, once I realized that my kind were considered eatable by the majority of humankind, I thanked my lucky stars for my non-flesh ingesting humans. I reciprocated their love and dietary inclinations by any means that could make me lovable. In hindsight, I must admit they were a little odd. He taught sociology at the university and she was a peace activist. Gentlefolk they were, rare to find in humans. I don't really weep much, a few turkey tears at most, but I could feel some droplets of drizzly dribble down my face. It happens when I get wistful about my humans. I pulled myself together and focused on the road. As I was driving by a mirrored building, one of those glass towers that careless fowl occasionally splat into from time to time, I used the opportunity to take a glimpse. There it was! A massive urban vampire tabby was clutching the top of my roof. It was a huge sucker, maybe 3 turkeys tall, and was gazing into the reflecting high-rise. Its appalling red eyes staring straight back at me. Worse still, its carnivorous claws had pierced my roof. It wasn't going anywhere unless I could shake loose. I started pumping the brakes hard, trying to dislodge it. It wasn't moving. Then one of its claws slashed my forehead. I was one swipe away from cashing out. I was in a tight spot, so I slammed down on the gas. In 10 minutes, I hit the sprawl, an inner rural anomaly of low, flat buildings which housed fly-by-night services humans assumed they could not do without. Up ahead, I caught a gander of possible salvation. It was a sight you don't see often. An old couple, him looking like Alberni, that iconic scientist, and his missus, also looking like Alberni, albeit with a bun on her head rather than a frizzy mop. We're out there, bold as brass, walking some dumb pet turkey like it was daylight. But it wasn't daylight. It was dark as ink. No one lived in the sprawl. All it was good for was commerce. You went there to purchase goods, and then you got the heck out. No dawdling, except maybe for some fast food or Java. And even if you did spend some time, more time than recommended in the sprawl, you never took your dumb pet turkey with you. That was just asking for trouble. The urban vampire tabby on my roof was having the same thoughts. Just as I was ruminating on sprawl decorum, the creature pounced onto the pavement and, in 2 jiggles of a turkey's jowls, sprung on the doomed domestic. The old couple dropped the leash and cowered backwards. The Urban vampire tabby chomped into the soft, thin neck of their precious pet. Blood spurted like a water spout from an open, heat-wavy fire hydrant. The old woman shrieked. Her hubby, the old Alberni look-alike, stood there, frozen in arthritic alarm. I wondered for a moment if he was thinking what was crossing my mind, that there had been stories of old folks being dragged into alleys by packs of UVTs and eaten up like the barely nutritious appetizers they were. Quick as a wink, the pet turkey, pretty in ribbon pink, was a lifeless and bleeding bag of bones. I stayed where I was in the relative safety of my vehicle. The UVT was smacking its lips uncontrollably. It had been easy pickings for the feline creature. I wondered if it was just still famished. It might not matter. Bloodlust was in its eyes. It looked up at the old Alberni couple. I could see we were on the same page, in the same cookbook. They turned, started to skedaddle. The UVT held its position. He had read the situation precisely. The old folks could run, but they couldn't hide.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Bill. That was great. I love that they were on the same page in the same cookbook. Excellente. Okay. Can always count on you to entertain us, Bill. No shortage. All right, I want to move on to introducing our first featured reader for the night. And we're just delighted to have Theresa Shea with us here from Edmonton. And for those of you who might not know, Theresa has won the Guernica Prize for her novel, The Shade Tree. And so that book will be coming out next year. Well, actually this year now, we're in 2021, will be coming out this year with Guernica Press. So that's fantastic, congratulations. She also did really well with her debut novel, which was The Unfinished Child, finalist for the George Burnett Award for Fiction and the Alberta Reader's Choice Award. And she's, what have we got? Oh, a graduate of McGill, Queen's and the University of Alberta, currently working on The Dog Days of Planet Earth, a novel that examines animal rights and the climate crisis through the historical lens of the nuclear experiments conducted by the United States government between 1945 and 1992. So looking forward to reading that one too. So I believe, Theresa, you're going to read to us from The Shade Tree tonight, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank
Can't wait to hear it. So welcome to the Electric Mermaid, and take it away. We'll have a little Q&A afterwards, so take your time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm very happy to be here. It's lovely to be invited. I'm not sure how I ended up on Jackie's radar, but it's really fun to be here. Listening to you read about my next novel, I thought, oh my gosh, I write such happy, light books, don't I? I seem to always sink my teeth into some pretty big topics. But I want to say, so I feel like I'm doing a bit of a time warp here. Zoom is so great that you can, be in different places, and, I wouldn't be in Port Alberni tonight, most likely. So it's kind of fun to be able to do that. And looking to see who some of the readers were, I saw Fiona Tinwei Lam, who I've never actually met, but when I was living in Gibsons, I don't know if you can see this, it's an anthology called Double Lives, Writing and Motherhood. And it came out in 2008 with McGill Queen's Press. And I had an essay in there that meant so much to me because I hadn't yet published a book, but I was writing and writing and writing. And I had these 3 little kids, and I was a crazy person to homeschool. Who homeschools? If you want to be a writer, I tell you, it was hard. But that really meant a lot to me. So nice to meet you, Fiona. And I also know Anna Mioduchowsa. I see her on here, and she's in the anthology, and we go back some ways in the writing community here. So that was in 2008. And then The Unfinished Child, which I think was on the poster, this came out finally in 2013. I started it in 2000 when my second child was born. She was 6 months old. So it takes me a long time to finish things or to get things.
We're not hearing the writing yet.
To get things going.
Yes.
Sorry, I could hear them speaking. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm going to, so The Unfinished Child comes from like personal experiences of having my first child when I was 35 years old. So I was like in that, risk category right off the bat. And I got to learn a lot about genetic testing and the whole idea of, you know, finding out in advance about possible health of your child. And it just made me think how different human reproduction has become, both good and bad in relation to science. But there's a lot of stories out there that are pretty touching and largely left untold. So I focus specifically on Down syndrome in that novel, because that is one of the groups that's been largely targeted for eradication, basically. And there's much discussion whether that's a modern day eugenics. Anyway, so it was, did really well with book clubs, and I've been very moved by having lots of readers reach out to me. And then, so before that, so in 2012, I started the Shade Tree, which, as was mentioned, just won the 2020 Guernica Prize, which I'm thrilled about, because in winning that prize, I also got a publishing contract, so it's coming out in October. And this is a light-spirited one about race relations in the United States. And I'll just say that the reason I wrote it, and sometimes it's more fun to talk about what you write than to read it, because you guys can all get books and read yourself. But when I was 6 months old, my mother took, 3 months old, my mother took me and my older sister, who was not even 2, to the Washington Monument. And we were there when, at the March on Washington, when Martin Luther King gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And she didn't tell me that for a very, very long time. We moved to Canada, and long story. But the more interesting part of the story, because I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. That's neat that my mom did that, and I was a baby in her arms. The more interesting part was that she didn't tell my father she was going. And I thought, wow, okay, that interests me, because they had very different political views. And anyway, the marriage didn't last. That's another book. That'll be another happy book. But it got me thinking about families, families being the place where our kind of original narratives are formed, and what happens when you're in a family that has a narrative that isn't a positive one in terms of how we all need to be able to learn how to live together on this planet. And why do some people in a family, why are some able to step outside of that and say, oh, I don't know, let me think about that. Is that something I want to continue to believe, or do I want to investigate that further? So that thinking about these things got me writing the Shade Tree. So I started that in 2012, and it's coming out this year. So again, it took a bit of time. So there are 3 main characters, 2 white sisters, and 1 black midwife. It takes place in Florida and Washington, D.C. It starts in 1910 and goes to 1963, or early January of 1964. And again, I wanted to just kind of play with the idea of people growing up in the same household, but evolving to have different views. So I'm just going to read a short bit from this, and then I'll leave it at that. I don't think there's anything else. So the 2 sisters are Mavis and Ellie, and Mavis is 3 years younger, so she's 10 years old when this takes place. And so the 2 girls have just been sitting on the swing in front of their house. Mavis sees a cat and decides to run and follow the cat into the barn. So this is in the first chapter. So she runs for the barn. The air was even more heavy, humid, and close inside. She stood still to catch her breath. Dust particles danced in the shafts of sunlight, shining through the gaps in the wood. Her palms had dirt melted into both lifelines, like the black veins in shrimp that had to be removed before you ate them. Her brother Jimmy said the black stuff was poop. Boys were always saying disgusting things. What did he know, even if he was 15? Hay rustled overhead in the loft like a silky whisper. Mavis climbed the ladder. The temperature changed at each rung. Hot, hotter, hotter. An engine started in the distance, the tractor her father had bought when he still could afford to. Or maybe the sound had carried from the Yates' property that buttressed against theirs. They had enough money to buy whatever newfangled piece of equipment they wanted, or so her daddy said. He'd been happy with his tractor for a day or two before Willis Yates bought a new one, and then her daddy noted that the only thing holding his tractor together was rust. Mavis stepped off the ladder and listened for the rustling sound. How patient she could be. There, and then it stopped. There. She listened and moved and waited and eventually discovered a nest of kittens behind a stack of old hay bales. 1, 2, 3, 7. Tiny things with a sparse coating of fur and eyes sealed shut. The mama cat hissed and Mavis slowly backed away. The writhing mass of new life sent a thrill through her. She was the only one who knew they were there. The secret was sugar on her tongue. Ellie was gone from the porch swing when Mavis ran back to the house. In her excitement, she didn't note the paint peeling in thick strips from the west side of the house that got the most light, or the softness of the wood on the second step up to the back door when her foot landed on it, or the extra heat as she passed through the kitchen past Mamie at the stove and eased her way soundlessly up the stairs to not wake the new baby. But there was no need to be quiet. The baby was crying and her mama was calling out Ellie's name. Mavis knew she'd find her sister hiding in her closet, hoping someone else would take on her responsibilities. Sure enough, Ellie sat cross-legged on her closet floor, brushing her long, dark hair that was so shiny it was almost black. Mama's calling for you. You go. She's calling for you. Mavis folded herself into the closet and left the door open a crack so they'd have some light. Guess what? I found a litter of kittens. There's 7 of them up in the hayloft behind the rotted bales. Well, call the Neil and News. I'm sure no one's seen anything like it before. The sweetness on her tongue turned sour. Must you ruin everything? You know I hate cats and their sandpaper tongues. Mavis left the closet. Mama's still calling for you, she said through the closed door. I'm going to tell her you're hiding on purpose. It was worth sacrificing her own freedom if that meant getting back at Ellie. That's likely why Ellie told their father about the kittens when he returned to the house before supper, and it was only by luck that Mavis saw him carrying the burlap sack and heading for the creek, the mother cat mewling at his heels. She ran after him, taking 2 strides for his one. What was in the bag, she pestered. What was he going to do? No, she begged to keep one, just one, please. Finally, he stopped. 1. His face contorted into an ugly shape because he was doing something he didn't want to do. But if Ellie wanted one, he wouldn't be mad at all. He'd let her keep 2 because he loved her the most. He opened the sack. Hurry up and grab one. Just reach in. I haven't got all day. On tiptoe, she reached in, felt for a leg and pulled. A blind kitten emerged, its pink flesh stippled with black fur. She recoiled from its newness and dropped it on the ground. The mother cat grabbed it by the scruff and ran back to the loft. Mavis followed her in case she changed her nest, and her daddy disappeared with the remaining kittens. Mavis named her kitten Dainty, and when she could get him from his mama, she carried him around in a homemade sling, just like the darkies carried their babies. Dainty this and dainty that, Ellie mocked a few days later at breakfast. If you love that cat so much, you should go back to the creek and rescue the other ones. Clem Fitzhenry said they can breathe underwater when they're young, but they lose that ability over time. He once saved kittens that had been submerged for almost a week. Clem was smart in school. Could it be true? Hope bloomed behind her rib cage, but Mavis hesitated. Ellie enjoyed making her look foolish. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Will you come? No, you know I hate cats. But won't Daddy be mad if I save them? He says there's already too many. Not if he doesn't know. When's the last time he was up in the hayloft? When he took the kittens. Now that she knew the kittens might still be alive, Mavis had to go see. She took Dainty back to his mama. Behind the barn, 4 darkies were digging in the dirt. She didn't recognize 2 of them, but there were always some just passing through, trying to make money to get somewhere else. She took the shortcut past the 12 shacks that housed half a dozen families. She passed the worn path that led to the giant shade tree that cast long shadows in every direction. She arrived at Sugar Creek short of breath and saw the sack partially submerged midstream and held down by a large rock. She had seen the water run higher before, but the current lacked urgency now. Mavis took her shoes off and socks and waded in. Right away, her feet went partially numb, which was good because she didn't feel the sharp edges on some of the rocks. It took a few pushes to move the rock, but she was determined. She freed the waterlogged sack and carried it to shore. It's okay, she said, we're almost there. Dainty's brothers and sisters would be so happy to see her. She readied her apology for making them wait. She'd only just learned kittens could breathe underwater. There was so much to learn in life. Her hands shook as she untied the cord and tipped the contents onto the grass. The first kitten gulched onto the bank with a soggy thud. The rest followed in a gush of muck and gore and stench. Mavis's breakfast rose from her stomach and filled her mouth. In her haste not to vomit on herself, she planted her foot in the pile of decomposing bodies that were cold and slippery, and they burst beneath her weight like overripe melons. That squelch of fluid, her insides emptied. She slid onto one knee and vomited until only dry heaves shook her body. Then she started home, sobbing and furious. She imagined Ellie putting one hand to her heart and laughing. You didn't actually believe the kittens would be alive, did you? She hated Ellie, hated her. Thank you.
Wow, spellbinding. I was right there. I didn't want it to stop. Thank you so much for that, Theresa. Beautiful. So we're going to open it up for a little bit of question and answer here. If anybody has any questions they'd like to put to Theresa about this book or any of her other books or any of her work or anything to do with writing that you want some advice on. She's obviously a seasoned pro. And you'll need to unmute yourself if you're going to do that. Now, I can't see everybody, so I'm just going to throw it in gallery view. And maybe just give me a wave with your hands if you want to ask a question. Or just unmute yourself and say hello, because I can't see a lot of people. Oh,
Theresa, thank you. I have some awful kitten stories of my own. I wondered, I've heard of sensitivity reading or editing. I don't know what your shade tree gets into as far as the race relations, but did you have to be concerned about that?
So to be honest, right now, I'm just editing the novel to get to the publisher for February 1st deadline. And that'll definitely be discussions that I'll have with the publisher and with the editor. So basically, writing about issues that deal with, white supremacy doesn't, it's not always pretty. So it's a difficult, so just like, when I wrote The Unfinished Child, in writing about Down syndrome, I was looking at the, testing and the high rates of termination. And there's a big difference between abortion and termination in my mind. And abortion is you don't want a child, termination is you don't want a particular kind of child. So it's very, so dealing with that in the novel was really hard not to come down on one side, because who am I to say you must have a child or don't have a child? So so I always seem to find myself writing books that are sensitive in nature, but it's also what I'm drawn to. So I look forward to the conversations with the press. And to be honest, I was I had shopped it around before, and one of the it's dealing with subject matter that is I think important. I think white people need to be having discussions about our past and our complicity and how the world is the way it is, without like, I think there's real discussions that need to be had. And those discussions can't take place in a vacuum. So I look forward to seeing what happens. And to be honest, I'm thinking, like, I don't want to, it's difficult to put oneself out there. And because it's a very vulnerable thing to put your work out there, and then anybody can get online and tell you what they think. So I'm excited about the book coming out, and I also just kind of want to go away when it comes out. But I mean, I'm not that important, right? It's I'm trying to tell a story that will start a good conversation. I think we need to have more conversations.
Mm-hmm. And if I could jump in there, I think just the fact that it's in the format of a novel that gives us time to really get into the psyche of characters and understand where they're coming from, and perhaps the formative experiences that create the perspectives they have, and how much more understanding that can engender versus, you know, a tweet or a, you know, so many little snippet conversations that are going on that are just inflammatory. That yeah, but at the same time, I have to honor you for being ready to wade into that difficult territory. And you're right, it absolutely needs to happen. We have a question actually in the chat bar, Theresa, that Fiona posted. She's wondering what kind of preparation you might have done to get into the voices of the characters. Was there anything in particular that you did there that you recall?
Oh, that's nice that you say they come across authentic and real. Well, I have siblings. So I have sisters, I have 2 sisters, and I also, there's 4 of us in our family, and we're very different. And we live in different political realms as well. And then again, from my own parents. And so I think I just drew on my own experience, and then I did a lot of reading. Again, so I was born in the US in '63 and moved to Canada in '77. So I've been here for, you know, very, very much longer, but both my parents were born and raised in Washington, DC. And I know my parents got married in 1962, and one of her best friends was coming to the wedding, and she didn't know that the country club that my dad's family had booked the wedding in didn't allow Black people, and that was 1962 in the capital, right? So anyway, so just lots of stories, and then we all have those family moments with relatives, and some of them say things that you can't believe. You might, you know, like, you know. This holiday season, we didn't get as much of that, possibly. But so I think just personal experience, and I've always been interested in the, you know, 1960s and the, yeah, I just think, you know, the greatest challenge we have, aside from the, you know, environmental is, and it's part and parcel, is how do we all get along? How do we all get along? And I think children, that initial script that we're handed is a powerful one. It's a very powerful one. So I like writing about children. And then Mavis and Ellie, sorry, it takes us up to the 60s when they're adults, and they have very different lives. And then there's a Black midwife, Sliver, who is with them as well. So I don't know, I live in my head a lot. And then I try to, ultimately, I'm not a historian. I really like to tell stories that get people talking. I think we're all, people who are here, I think we're all probably book lovers, and I know books saved my life. They've taken me all kinds of places, and they've moved. I love books that move me. I want likable characters that in difficult situations. So I think, what would I do? What would I do? Am I really better than those people? Would I have done anything different if I had been there, you know?
Beautiful. Wow. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. That's awesome. All right. I think we're going to have to move along, and maybe I'll just mention, though, that if anyone's interested in getting a hold of any of Theresa's work, that in the chat bar there, Karl has posted some links where you can go, and of course keep your eye out for the Shea.
I'd also like to say, can I say, support your local bookstore if you have one? Yes. Order through your local bookstore if you can.
Yeah,
well, that would be great if we had one in port.
I know.
Yeah. Well,
but just if you want to, if you, instead of writing them down, if you go where it's file, you can save the chat and it'll show you all that stuff. So you don't have to sit there and write it all out.
Right. Work. Just click on the little file down at the bottom.
Yeah, or go to alberni.ca. It's all on there too.
Okay. Good. All right. Thank you so much, Theresa. That was wonderful. So we're going to move along now and have another one of our open mic readers. And I believe Pat Buckna is the next one in line there. Pat, are you ready to roll?
I am. Thanks very much.
Take it away.
This is a story from my upcoming second memoir. Today is the summer solstice. The sun has been up for more than a month. I climb into the komatik, a wooden sled attached to the back of a snowmobile. We're heading out 7 miles across the frozen Beaufort Sea to see a bunch of ducks. The mayor had invited me to perform at the Kingalig Jamboree and flew me up from Yellowknife to join 600 other visitors. Holman is 925 kilometers north of Yellowknife on Victoria Island, a 300-person hamlet hosting the celebration of the return of the eider ducks, prized for their soft, warm down. Male king eiders, Kingalig, black and white bodies, pale blue heads, velvety green cheeks, and bright orange knobbed bills, migrate here every June from the south. "Hold tight," orders our Inuit driver as we lurch onto the ice. On the barren promontory to our right, 2 large stone Inukshuk stand watch over an almost frozen sea. We speed across the melting sea ice, over a foot of melted water softened by a midnight sun that had risen in May and won't set again until September. A blinding Arctic sun, almost warm enough to make us forget the 1,000 feet of water beneath us, clear ice still 20 feet thick. Wide cracks, leads, have opened. Soon the massive sheet will fracture and become open ocean again. Crossing leads is easy, simply a matter of accelerating, then shooting the gap, forcing breathless glimpses of icy black depths. We pass an earlier party who stand near the edge of a lead, their submerged skidoo nose down in the water, prevented from sinking only by their empty sled teetering on the edge. At another lead, 2 young hunters lay flat on the ice, fishing for Arctic char. Another with a rifle shoots at seals. We reach our destination, a large channel between 2 steep cliffs, a favorite flight path for the migrating birds. The skidoos are parked alongside a lead too wide to cross. Inuit hunters, all old men in gumboots, spread out diagonally across the ice. Park-clad women and children wait close to shore. The hunter at the front of the line raises his shotgun in the direction of a low-flying flock. He shoots, forces the eider ducks to change direction into the path of the other hunters. Shotguns blast. Dozens of birds drop like bombs, bounce on the ice, and skid to a stop. The women and children carrying black garbage bags run quickly to collect them, pluck the precious feathers and down, clean and bag the meat in preparation for the feast to follow. In less than an hour, the harvest is complete, komatiks loaded, and we retrace our path across the ice, bounce over leads back to the village. On the gravel beach, our driver gestures to the horizon, warns of an impending storm. We squint where he points, but see nothing but cloudless blue sky. The clean ducks are tossed into cooking pots, several unplucked ones laid out for the upcoming duck plucking contest. Most of the men enter the harpoon throw contest. Women enter the seal skinning competition, followed by couples who compete in the bannock and tea-making contest. Afterwards, the mayor, dressed in a t-shirt, cowboy boots, and ball cap, invites square dancers onto a plywood platform to sashay left and allemande right to the distorted sounds of a too-loud ghetto blaster. In less than 4 hours, the sky turns gray, then white. The predicted blizzard strikes, and the entire town and 600 visitors move indoors to the school gym to drum dance, fiddle, and jig for 2 days and nights until the snow ends, all in honor of the return of the Kingalig. Thanks.
Super, Pat. Thank you very much. Looking forward to that memoir when it's done. How far into it are you?
We're about a month or 2 out.
Oh, good. Very good. Awesome. Okay, we're going to move on to the second feature of the night, which is the anthology Old Bones and Battered Bookends, and I think I happen to have a copy here. That's the beautiful skeleton on the cover, and I'm going to just let Ian Cognito, who is one of the editors, along with Pat Smickle on it, just maybe give you a minute or so there, Ian, and if you want to just share with us a little bit about the the genesis of the anthology, that'd be awesome.
Oh, okay. Pat Smeckle and I had put together a collection ourselves.
Can't hear you very well there, Ian. Are you muted?
No, not muted. I didn't have my mic down.
There
okay.
we are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, very good.
Okay. Yeah, the genesis of it, I guess, was that Pat Smeckle and I had put together a collection of our own work entitled Much Ado About Nothing, in which we looked at death and dying, and we both felt like we weren't quite finished with the topic, and we decided we wanted to open it up. So then that morphed into Old Bones and Battered Bookends, which we invited other authors from across Canada, mostly BC, to participate in, and we got over 300 submissions, as you said earlier, and we whittled that down to 35 for the collection, and we're quite happy with the results. And I thought what I would do now is just read a little bit from the foreword by Anne-Marie Carson, who is a writer from Blue Mountains, Ontario, because I think she captures very well what is common for all of us in this really important topic that what we cover in this book. So the poems in Old Bones and Battered Bookends contemplate one of the most profound experiences we hold in common: getting older. From the days when our progress is chronicled on door frames and inches of celebration, to a growing reluctance to mark yet another milestone, we age in shared and yet deeply personal, sometimes solitary ways. Our need for companionship on this journey is as old as the bones of humanity. Each of its way stations is as newly surprising to us as the discovery of yet another aching joint, a new wrinkle or gray hair, the declining vision that alters how we see ourselves and how others may see us. Our appreciation for getting older, like all journeys, is as much about what we pass through as what we attend to.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for that intro, and so true. I like to think that my vision of the world is just getting softer as I get older. It's not that my eyes are getting worse, just softens the world. It's kind of a nice thing. So we're going to hear from a lot of the poets. They're just going to read a poem each to give everybody a little taste of what's in this wonderful anthology. And we're going to start off with Michael Penny. He's a poet from Bowen Island. Good evening, Michael. And he's got five books under his belt, most recently Inside Outside with Queen's University Press. Take it away, Michael.
Oh, thank you. And Theresa, thank you. I haven't seen you for many, many years. You haven't changed a bit. And Ian and Pat, thank you for including me in the volume. My skeleton walks in the middle of my body. Easy in its knowledge it will outlive me. This makes it inflexible, even hard on the muscles which cling to it. It doesn't know there are parts it doesn't cage. A beating heart truly untouched by it. Yes, it cups my brain and its high electric notions, but a container is not as important as what it contains. My skeleton would like to leave now and make its own clattering way in the world, but I am too possessive, too attached to let it go. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Michael. And Michael's going to bookend the reading. He's actually going to be the battered bookends, I guess. He's going to have us another poem at the very end to just round it out.
Right.
So stay tuned for some more of Michael's work. Next is Daniela Lorenzi. She's a Victoria writer whose work has been published in a variety of print and online journals and in The Sky is Falling, The Sky is Falling, a pandemic anthology from Planet Earth Poetry, which is launching Tuesday, I believe, of next week on Zoom. So maybe Sheila could put the link for that or just a way for people to get to the Zoom link in the chat. Sheila is the coordinator for that anthology. So welcome, Daniela. I'd love to hear your poem. Please go ahead.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here. This poem is called Climate Change. My hormones packed up and went away without so much as a goodbye, just left. I didn't even see them leave. They were so silent. Left me sandbagged, desiccated, a hazy shadow of my ripe old self, desperate to find purpose for the withering organs squandering space inside this shell. Take the womb, for example. Just hangs there, playing solitaire. No visits from the neighbors anymore. For the ovaries have also shut up house. Cobwebs obscure their front doors, while crone eggs can be found curled up in moth-eaten chairs, perusing great expectations, nibbling on stale wedding cake. Then there's the vagina, tropical vestibule, once lush with lust and promise, now braced and battened down against the desert winds which wail through day and night, heaping listless dust on a parched, once rhythmic thoroughfare. Outwardly, however, it seems that I still merit a footprint on this earth. Round, deceptively inviting warm mass draws morning nuzzling and a tentative knocking at the parchment door. There is always hope, after all, that a spring-like light might trickle in through brittle Spanish moss, and that more humid tropic breezes will prevail. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes, bring on those tropic breezes.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. Our next reader is Kieran Egan, and Kieran is a Vancouver writer and is published Among the Branches, Alfred Gustave Press, and in many Canadian, UK, and USA magazines. And his novel Tenure will be published by New S Press in 2021. Welcome, Kieran. We're so glad to have you here and look forward to hearing your poem.
Thank you. The poem's called Slow Down, Lady. Slow down, lady, slow down. It's not pockets full of lead, but knees without cartilage, lungs with fibrosis, and too many years in which time has battered the rest of me. I stop, can't keep up with you. Watch you big stride away along the busy sidewalk. 20 seconds before you realize you're not still dragging me in your whirling wake. What's wrong, you call? Knees, lungs, time. People look from you to me, making what they can or will of it. It is just the born work-die routine. You're vigorously working, I'm resting between gigs. That's it.
Yeah, super. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kieran. All right, our next poet is Christopher Levinson, poet, mentor, and literary organizer. He's published 12 books of poetry, the most recent being A Tattered Coat Upon a Stick, thank you, Yeats, from Quattro Press in 2017. Christopher, are you here?
Sorry, Derek, it's Charlene here, and we haven't found Christopher.
Okay, no, Christopher. Well, at least we were able to talk about him while he wasn't here. That's all good. All right, our next reader then is going to be Janice Lore. Janice hails from Tofino, BC, writes poetry, makes handmade books, and finds great joy in playing with artists from other disciplines. And Janice's writing has appeared, oh, where did it go now? There you go, in various anthologies and literary magazines and on CBC Radio. Welcome, Janice. Can you unmute yourself and go ahead there, Janice?
I think I'm unmuted.
There you are. You're good now. Take it away.
Poem for Menopausal Memory. 1. The grim, panicked search for the word that was just on the tip of my tongue. Now it storms around behind my eyes, hammering the wall, where a moment before there was an opening. Later, it might clunk itself into the conversation, stumbling out of the wings long after the scene has shifted. A show stopper. And so my grip is pried away, finger by finger. The forefinger, a lost ability to conjure words, no means now to explicate myself, to coax, to point to the word for. The middle finger, a fruitless defiance of beauty's slow dissolution. I become lined, sagging, wattled, graying, tusked, mottled, bearded, incoherent, and unseen. The ring finger, once bright promise, worn dull, constricting. The little finger, my hand's strength lost without it, and I, unable to wrap my will. The thumb last, scarred and gnarled, once opposed, now nothing left to hold. Three, at the end of words, a question I cannot remember, asking. The answer I once thought I knew. Thank you.
Sorry, I have to unmute for a second today. That's just fabulous.
I'm not sure who that was talking, but anyway, I enjoyed that, Janice. Thank you very much. That was awesome. Beautiful video poem, and great. You're showing us how to stretch this medium and work it. I love it. That's beautiful. Okay, our next reader is Laurie Smith, coming all the way from Windsor, Ontario, I believe. Yes, Windsor poet, co-publisher editor of the Cranberry Tree Press, and runs creative writing workshops. Her newest book of poetry, Suck and Spit, is available from Black Moss Press. Welcome all the way from Ontario area, oh, my home province, Laurie. Welcome.
Hi. Haven't been out to your end of the country for 10 years, but I love it out there.
I'm not hearing you very well, Laurie.
What happened?
I don't know. That.
Are we still here? Okay, testing 1, 2, blah, blah, blah.
I can just barely hear you. I think you're still showing us muted.
Not here. Mute. Audio settings. Volume.
I don't see the button, mute button beside her, so.
I don't either.
Okay.
My volume thing.
Just speak closer to the computer, please.
Test mic. Ooh, that's all right. I'm trying to turn it up. Is that all right?
That's getting better.
How about if I just yell?
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
better?
Yeah, that's better.
All right, all right, all right.
Colorado's.
Too close. Trying to figure out what that scary thing is up on the wall behind me. Okay. Shall I go on?
Sure, go ahead, Laurie.
Okay. This is called Toothless Hag. I may become the crazy cat lady with a long silver ponytail when they say I'm too old for long hair. Oh well. I may become the little old lady hunched over the steering wheel of my well-maintained 3-year-old Ford Focus in what you call the passing lane, so what's your hurry anyway? I may become the old lady with her teeth and a glass of water on the nightstand, not in my mouth when I answer the door at 3 in the afternoon. I may become the batty old lady who forgot she used to care about things like fashion and makeup, may wear slippers and housecoat to the 7-Eleven. I may become the sweet old lady who takes you by the arm in the grocery store to tell you how much I used to pay for a box of crackers and can you pick up that bag of cat litter from the bottom shelf for me, dearie? I may become the oblivious old lady who counts out all her change at the express lane checkout line when there are 5 people behind her with melting ice cream, and then I may buy a lottery ticket because I saw my late husband's birthday and a license plate outside, but I shouldn't have to pay a nickel for your damn plastic bag. It's just advertising. I may become that lonely old lady who can't hear a damn thing but grins stupid because someone's making eye contact, then tell you again about how I read the obituaries first thing every morning to check if I'm still alive.
Awesome. Thank you very much. That was great. Some great lines. Okay, our next reader, we're moving right along, is Anna oh boy, I'm going to mess this up, I'm afraid. Anna Mioduchowska's poetry is, yeah, she's done poetry translations, stories, essays and reviews. They've all appeared in several anthologies, literary journals, and have aired on the CBC and good old CKUA. Used to love that when I lived in Alberta. And she's got 2 poetry collections, In Between Season and Some Souls Do Well in Flower Pots. Welcome, Anna, and I'm sorry about butchering your name. Please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Derek, and hello, everyone. My poem is called Transformations. One look at the girl child who invites you to follow her, and you know you have crossed another border. At home among the white petals of the dental office unfolding around her, she is not the dentist's daughter on the negative side of 20, visiting on career day. You listen to her explain the order of proceedings, opt out of fluoride but accept polishing, vision of a gleaming smile wrestling down your inner Scrooge. Mouth wide open, you submit to the ministrations and refuse the offer to watch the screen mounted to the ceiling. You fasten your attention on the exposed part of the girl's face. Make it your own for the duration. Thank you.
Sweet, thank you very much. That was nice. All right, our next reader is Keith Garebian. Keith Garebian is the author of 8 books of poetry and 18 books of nonfiction, wow, including the acclaimed biography William Hutt, Soldier Actor, out with Guernica Editions in 2017. Against Forgetting, which came out with Frontenac House Poetry in 2019, is his 8th poetry collection. So welcome to Electric Mermaid, Keith. Looking forward to hearing your poem.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Okay. All right. First, I want to thank Derek and Charles, and especially Ian and Pat for including me in the anthology. And I just want to preface my poem by telling you that it's based on an old Chinese widow who owned this condo before I bought it from her. She was very happy in this condo. She lived in Canada for many years, but her children, who had studied in Canada and gone back to Hong Kong, urged her to return. So it's called Monday Watcher. Old Chinese widow, sitting by the window, overlooking the park and lake, rocking gently as she watches the Monday world outside. Grime mounts on furniture. Maids are cleaning for other widows. But she sits, watches, while birds are hectic in their trees. Breadwinners surge to work. Stores open their shutters. And yellow school buses load kids loud with gossip about their weekend. The window doesn't matter in itself, but there is always something to see. The 3 children in Hong Kong summon her to return, thinking she's much too lonely in her widowhood. She rocks in meditation. What shall she say of today? There is nothing sad here by the lake. What she sees best is close. To return where they need her is to lose herself, vanish, and begin again. She does not miss the card games, mahjong, tea rituals, yum cha, casinos. She does not mind the cracked bathtub or peeling walls. Those wounds are not hers. Her heart is strong, lips soundless, as she prays to moving clouds. Thank you.
Beautiful, lovely portrait. And I love that birds are hectic in their trees. Fiona put that in the chat, where that's magic. Thank you so much, Keith. Enjoyed that. All right, our next reader is Stephen Berg, and Stephen's from Duncan here on Vancouver Islands. Published a couple of books of poetry. There Are No Small Moments, The Rasp and Wine 2014, and Beacons, Blues, and Holy Goats from Paola's House Press in 2019. Welcome to the Electric Mermaid, Stephen. Take it away.
Thank you, and it's really great to be here among all these wonderful writers. This is called If I Were to Do It All Over Again. Well, let me say this up front so as not to bore you with the tidy circular ending to this poem, that if I were to do it all over again, there's much I would do just the same. That said, if I could do it all over again, I'd seek wisdom earlier, the honeyed wisdom of the free, who are not run by the approbative nod, who do not collect bits of junk identity, who live as though death has passed. If I were to do it all over again, I would not pull down the nests of wasps. I would not seek to make a porcupine my pet, nor strive to teach a crow to use my shoulder as a perch. I would give myself to lilacs at every opportunity. I would be obedient to the rhythm of rivers. I would allow meaning to grow in its own garden and not rip it up and place it on a metal table for dissection. I do the same with faith. I would learn to look at myself kindly, with love, and if not love, at least forgiveness, which is a form. I would grow more tomatoes and heal my potatoes before they flowered. I'd learn the language of trees, sit under the tutelage of elm or elder, and every morning rediscover that I'm a guest here under the sweep of limbs and white clouds, always just a guest, a worker ant, a fuzzy, colorful worm, a bee in a vineyard, as are we all. I would pray more and accept the contradictions of prayer. Every day I'd climb into my attic to challenge God, and every day by grace I'd be thrown further out into the deepening lake of bright complexities. I would tolerate less to make more room for love. I would be a disciple of gratitude, an acolyte of contentment. I would read less Dostoevsky and more Dr. Seuss. I would hang a sign in my kitchen that says, "Do not look for a sign, carry on without one." I'd find a way into my own form of activism and not fear being disliked. I'd welcome paradox and confusion, but be impatient with stupidity, especially my own. I'd spare myself the suffering and grief of comparison. And even though Georgina was a grade ahead of me, I would risk telling her I liked her. Those days when like meant being half tipsy in her presence, enveloped in wonder at the sight of her yellow blouse, her white blonde hair shining even in the shadows. Thank you.
Gorgeous. Yes, wisdom is hard won. Beautiful. Okay, Sheila Martindale is our next reader, and Sheila's a writer from Victoria who's published 10 books of poetry, current poetry editor for Island Writer magazine, and anthology editor, as I mentioned earlier. Welcome again, Sheila. Take it away.
Derek, nice to be here. This is called Sixth Symphony, and it's based on Tchaikovsky's symphony of the same name, which is considered to be a biography of his life. If I had composed your sixth, Peter Illich, I would have switched the last two movements, ending on that triumphant crescendo, trumpets blaring, cymbals clashing, crashing those pearly gates with sound. But this is your life story, not mine. First two movements slow and mostly sad, boarding school, your mother's death, a short and bland career in civil service. The third quarter, before you found your music, your voice, perhaps the reality of your physical self, tempo increasing, volume ascending, singing with exhilaration, dancing in the winter palace, waking the sleeping beauty, gliding among swans, living the headiness of star-crossed love. And then the ponderous descent into unexplained misery, the long lament for climaxes not attained, shuffling along your Via Dolorosa to that inevitable and welcome final lingering minor chord. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sheila. That was a most gorgeous ending. The minor chord. Great. Okay, our next reader is Anne Hopkinson, another Victoria writer, and obviously a good colleague of Sheila Martindale. She writes poetry, fiction, and nonfiction, chair of Planet Earth Poetry, and her work has appeared in several anthologies, and she won the Victoria Writers Society Creative Nonfiction Contest in 2018 and the Canadian Stories Poetry Prize in 2019. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you, and thank you to all the previous readers. It was a real treat to hear your clever words. This poem is called An Old Poet, and it was written for my childhood friend. His name is Ken Belford. He was a poet from northern BC. I think he had about 9 poetry books, and I have 8 of them. And he was also a hunting and fishing guide. He passed away in March 2020. An old poet. I saw his age at the reading last night. He moved to the podium in careful steps, as if dragging cement on his boots. As if he hadn't once lived in the wilderness, hadn't led rich city hunters up canyons and out again safely with their kills. Last night he shuffled, and his hand shook, reaching for water. I heard his age in the short breath phrasing as he mumbled into the mic, strained to carry beyond the first 3 rows. As if he hadn't once shouted, "This way," on the trail, or called out from boat to shore, "3 steelhead." Last night his lips barely moved, and he didn't love his voice the way he used to. I felt his age at the poetry launch. The younger, louder crowd knew each other already, and he waited for introductions. As if he hadn't been a poet all the days of his life, as if he hadn't given his poems away freely for decades, as if he couldn't beat old age with powerful lines, the walls of his home plastered with words. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Yeah, beautiful portrait. All right. We're on to Fiona Tinwei Lam, please. Fiona Tinwei Lam is a writer from Vancouver whose most recent book is Odes and Laments, published with Caitlin Press in 2019. Welcome, Fiona. Wonderful to have you here.
Wonderful to be here. Thanks for the introduction, Derek, and thank you to all the organizers of this wonderful series, and to, of course, the editors of this terrific anthology, to Ian and Pat. I've been really enjoying hearing the poems from the collection. It brings them to life. I've got a short poem, very short poem. It's about passion. It's called Mirror, Mirror, of course, based on the fairy tale. That experience when you look in the mirror and You don't recognize yourself, and you look into the mirror of other people's eyes, and again, you don't recognize yourself, but your true self is there. Mirror, mirror. Mirrors lie. We're as young as the young who saunter and stride past us and make out at sidewalks. We're fledgling souls in old casings until someone offers us a seat on the bus. Only then do we wither. Juice versus desiccation. Whole versus shards poorly glued together. Should we dye our hair, get out the toques, the black t-shirts, leather jackets, bench press away the years? Our bodies, instruments still strive to be strummed. Always room on the edge of exhilaration. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, that about captures it. Thank you so much. All right, our next poet is Daniel Scott, and Victoria is home for Daniel. And his publications include After Time 2019 with Ecstasis, one of my own publishers. Cliches Undone Volume 1 2020 with Nose in Book Publishing. And he recently edited an anthology entitled Voicing Suicide. Came out in 2020 with Ecstasis. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I want to add my thanks to everybody, to Ian and Pat especially. I must say one of the things I'm really enjoying about the poems tonight are the tongue-in-cheek humor lines that keep popping up, and it's so wonderful that we can take ourselves not too seriously as we fade. This poem is from After Time, the moment that this poem is based on was when I was visiting my stepmother at a care home in Toronto, and she was in a fairly advanced stage of dementia at that point. And this poem is called The Way Memory Dies. I watched it happen to you as you faded from us. The look on your face when we knew you did not know who we were. Left us with things you'd made and vows we'd made to never forget you. Object permanence, it's called, when a child knows things exist even when they cannot be seen. Your photo on the piano, fading. A sweater you knitted, given away. A favorite plate, broken. Your place in life, melting away. My turn coming. All the ghosts I have accumulated, impermanent, like you. Like meaning and promises, temporary. Slide from memory. A slow evaporation to a vacant stare. Thanks, everyone.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you. Very moving, Daniel. My mother-in-law is going through that right now. She's not quite that far along, but not far away from it. There's a progression that's very, very difficult to watch, and it is that thing if you start to project and think, oh my God, that could be me in another 10 or 20 years, who knows, right? It can be terrifying. You captured that very well. Thank you. All right, Mary Lee, I see that you're teed up there. Wonderful. Mary Lee Bragg is a poet from Ottawa, whose recent poetry collection, The Landscape That Isn't There, was nominated for the 2020 Lampman Award. There it is. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mary Lee.
Thank you. Apparently, we're going to get 15 to 25 centimeters of snow tonight, and it's already 10:30, so I'm looking forward to just hiding upstairs with the covers over my head. This poem is called Hood. The hood obscures his face. He stands with his back to me, holding what looks like a hockey stick. He is always there, but never near. When he does turn, I know some part of me will welcome him. Proliferating cells will leap forward, or others thin and break. Perhaps even now, He watches the bullet fall off an assembly line or counts the clicks as I book a ticket on that doomed flight. He has smothered children in their snowbank tunnels, extinguished mothers on their beds of labor, escorted heroes of the revolution to the guillotine or gulag, blessed my parents with heart attacks. I listen to my steady thump, diet and exercise, and take my meds. I am full of hope. But when he turns, I know it will be my heart that leaps. And in fact, it was.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
I actually wrote that poem almost 2 years before I had congestive heart failure and had to have open heart surgery.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's weird.
Practically precognitive, I would say. Yeah.
No, just looking at family history.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, beautiful poem. Thank you for reading that.
Thank you.
With us, and good luck with the snow.
Yeah.
It's later
Well, I'm
than
not shoveling it.
Yeah.
I have a heart condition.
Good. Yeah. Just watch it fall and enjoy it. That's
Yeah.
the best way to go. All right. That brings us around to Andrew Brown, poet from Qualicum Beach. Published 3 books: Crow's First Word in 2007, The Stone Inside a Man's Heart 2013, and Shadow Road 2016. And currently working on the 4th book, The Ghost Forest. Welcome again, Andrew. Take it away.
Thank you very much. And just want to say thank you to Derek, who I know slightly from a workshop, and to Karl behind the scenes there, making sure everything ticks along. And also to Ian and Pat, who put this lovely anthology together. And of course, to all the participants who read so beautifully tonight. So I'll try to keep up with you. This poem is from Crow's First Word, my first book, and it's called All the Deaths. All the deaths are found here, like small birds soaring who fly into glass doors and then are laid out on the back porch with broken necks and startled eyes. This is how it is with all the deaths I have encountered. They come back not as ghosts or visitations from beyond, but suddenly, unexpectedly. They're lying broken with eyes like shards of glass just outside the door. Little mounds under the snow, small messages wrapped in the sheath of remembrance, and with the faces they wore the last time I saw them. All the deaths come in at the door, clapping hands against shoulders, stamping feet against a cold more eternal than snow, more frigid than winter. And they pass close around me, so that there is nowhere else to look but into the eyes of a dead loved one. And to see myself reflected back, always myself growing even older. My hair graying, my skin translucent like the parchment upon which all these deaths are written. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Andrew. Powerful poem, man. All right, that brings us around to the far end. So the battered bookends come full circle, and Michael Penny is going to close out the readings from the anthology. Actually, I'm going to give you my poem from the anthology later on, but at the very end of the show. So Michael, let's hear the closing poem there.
Well, thank you. And thanks to everybody who read. What wonderful stuff, what variety. Really enjoyed it. I'd complain, but these are the facts. I order legs to walk and ignore stiff muscles and cracking knees. Bones back muscles job action as they fail to support my enterprise. Lungs want to bellow better air and resent my gasp. Heart no longer wants to race, but slow to gentle rest, despite that woman over there. Bowels question the diet they expel, and penis resents my imagination. Liver says stop, sending me junk beyond an ability to clean. Bladder drowns me, swelling a balloon in my inside. Pain has the nerve to work nerves overtime into the darkest hours. All my bits are warring, and there's no prospect of peace, as even brain can't solve this, being tired and full of the gaps in all those given years. But no, I'm not out of here.
That's the spirit. We're not out of here yet. Absolutely not. We've got too many poems to write. Super. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone that read from the anthology. I think that that was wonderful to be able to carry a theme along like that and get all those various perspectives and hear the echoes between the poems and the overlaps of perspectives, and then the uniqueness of each person's take at the same time. It's wonderful, really enjoyable. So we'll go back to some open mic readers now. And next one I've got on the list here is Janet Miller, who hails from up there in Courtenay. And Janet, aren't you going off on a writer residency pretty soon?
I am at Hague Brown House in Campbell River. Instead of having a writer in residence this winter, which that they usually have, they've allotted 3 2-week sessions for writers in residence and I have one of them. I will just go to Hague Brown House, work in the study all by myself in the cold for 2 weeks and work on my work. So that will be fun. Wow. They said, better bring a sweater and slippers. Okay. In the old days, before COVID came around, those of us from Vancouver Island and the Sunshine Coast, Gibsons and Powell River, used to spend time on the ferries, right? So maybe you've seen this guy in this story on the ferries. Bulldog. The queen of whatever, I'm on her, the ferry. Restless, broke, can smell coffee when I pass the cafeteria. The other passengers sitting damn cozy with their wives and newspapers. My day turns sideways when I spy a wallet on the floor of the men's washroom. I pick it up, take a quick rifle, and set it down a couple of sinks over. The door slams open and 2 hairy fists the size of cabbages grab me by my jacket front and jerk me off my feet. The fist's owner, stinking breath spewing, shouts in my face, "Don't touch that wallet, you little creep." He gives me a shake. My feet dangle this way and that. "That's mine, you scruffy good-for-nothing shite." Okay, I'm on the scrawny side and overdue a haircut, but this guy is starting to bug me. Nothing I could do to teach him a lesson at the present time, though, what with my eyes squeezed shut and my feet a couple inches above the ground. Someone shouts, "Hey, Bulldog, ferry's docking. We gotta go, get to our hogs." I land with a crash. Mr. Bulldog snatches up the aforesaid wallet and gives me a shove with his foot. All right, it's more like a kick, but it doesn't hurt. I stand, give myself a dust off, and limp to a cubicle. Fast thinker that I am, I hide out and wait while the ferry lands, unloads, reloads, and departs the terminal. I'm headed back over to the mainland now, with a pocket full of cash, a couple of credit cards, and ID in Mr. Bulldog's real name. This is when he learns his lesson. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so much, Janet. And I hope you stay warm up there in Campbell River. Enjoy. All right, our next reader is Julie. And I'm sorry, I don't have your last name there, Julie, but the microphone is yours. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm currently not living in my permanent home, so I don't have a printer, so I'm looking at my iPad to read, so apologies. This one's pretty self-explanatory, I think, for everybody. A year on the coals. Ever met anyone brought as much chaos as me? Undiagnosed ADHD on the side, untreated. Loved strong and wide, looked for calm, didn't last long. Last J flamed along. Love of my life, but chaos was stronger, held on way longer, overthrew. Now, know you. Finally addressed the mess that's been me, meds, targeted therapy, quiet. Calm's finally inside, but the world's blown wide open. Nobody's coping. COVID-19 and the orange machine to the south. In each other's faces, on Facebook, Twitter, out in the streets. They hiding the sheets, but nooses still swing. In each other's faces, all identified genders, sexuality and races. Mixed and non and cis. Anonymous, Antifa, but we know what for. Some are believers and some just cheaters. Plants loot with the looters, outshoot the shooters. Cops need no robbers nor cowboys, they're Indians. Bodies are swinging and begging and gasping for air. My dad is dying and you're not here. Just this never-ending fucked up year where I gave up one home to unmake another. Without you, no other. Just pandemic and cancer and hatred, an airport that walked me mad naked, but masked, always masked. No outlaws or heroes or super banditos. My heart, refrito, like beans. Hot mess of calm. Storm came along, went from inside me to out, turned me right side out, unskinned me. No skinned knees, no mother, no father, no kissing it better. Forest fires, smoke in place of weather. And this, the silence, finally inside me, surrender. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's the year that we're glad is over, right? And hopefully 2021 is going to be better, but we don't know. It's not starting off too well yet, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. Thanks for that. All right, Kathy and Gibsons is our next reader.
Oh, I am?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right.
You're number
Okay.
6. Yeah. Or is
And-
Dave, or David. Oh, David was supposed to be number 6. And you're
Yeah,
supposed
no,
to be number 8. Oh, I messed up.
That's all right. I'll go.
Okay, Kathy. Thanks.
Anne would never have heard the scream and the thud if her mother hadn't kept her home from school that day. You're not over your cold yet, and besides, you can help me move the couch. Anne's mother was always rearranging the furniture. The couch was a big golden sectional with 4 parts, a regular couch for 3 people, a big curved part for at least 2 people, and 2 parts that each sat 1 person. Anne's mother said she bought it so the whole family could all sit together, but she often separated the pieces, putting end tables in between them. One time, she even put 1 piece on its own in the part of the living room that was used as the way to get from the dining room to the hallway bedrooms. Anne remembered that day because her father came home, hung up his coat as usual in the dining room closet, and then on the way to the bedroom, tripped over the chair. Anne laughed, but her father didn't think it was funny. He said a man should be able to walk in his own house without breaking his neck, and made Anne's mother move the chair back to the sectional where it belonged, which she did, but Anne could tell her mother was really mad about it. The day that Anne's mother kept her home from school, her mother bought new light tan end tables. Her mother called them blonde, and was taking the old dark brown end tables up to the attic storage. A tall wooden ladder led almost straight up from the garage floor to the small attic doorway. Around the top of the ladder were also sheets of plywood her father had put over the garage rafters for storing things. While Anne's mother was carrying one of the dark brown end tables up the ladder, Anne was reading in the breezeway. That was when Anne heard the scream and the thud. Anne ran out to the garage where she saw her mother lying on her back on the cement floor, all crooked. Anne started crying. "Come here, Anne. I fell. I can't move. You must call your father at work. The number is 3555205.
Say it's an emergency and he must come home right away. I can't remember. Yes, you can. Repeat it after me. Anne repeated the number. I'll forget, Mommy. No, you won't. Just keep saying it over and over again until you get to the phone. Anne kept crying and saying the number even as she dialed it. A lady answered. I have to speak to my father. Please, it's an emergency. Just a moment, I'll get him. Daddy, Mommy was taking the end table up the ladder to the attic and she fell down and the end table is all smashed and Mommy is lying on the floor on her back all crooked. You have to come home right away. I'll be right there. I'll just grab my coat. Wait a minute. Who are you? You don't sound like my daughter. And I don't have an attic. And my wife never gets up before noon. My father. Oh, you must be Joe's daughter. I'll get him. Anne spoke to her real father and he promised to come home. Anne ran out to the garage where her mother was still crumpled on the cold floor. Daddy's coming. Anne, can you get me a blanket from the linen closet? Anne ran to the closet, but she was suddenly afraid of getting into trouble if she took one of the good blankets. But then luckily she found at the bottom of the pile the old one she was allowed to make a tent outdoors with. Anne spread the blanket all over her mother, just like her mother told her to, and waited till she heard her father's car. Then Anne ran into her bedroom and shut the door. After what seemed a long time to Anne, her father came to her bedroom door. I have to go back to work now. Your mother's all right, just bruises, you know, black and blue. Listen for her if she needs anything. Later, Anne heard her mother calling her. Anne waited a bit, but her mother kept calling. Anne slowly made her way to her mother's bedroom, where she found her mother lying on the bed, shivering. Even her teeth were chattering. You have to call the doctor, Anne. Oh no, not more numbers. I can't do more numbers, Mommy. It's all right, Anne. Your father's left the doctor's number by the telephone. Anne told the doctor that her mother fell down the ladder onto the cement floor, that her father said it was just bruises, but that her mother's teeth were chattering. It's just the shock of the fall. You must keep her warm and hold her hand. Stay with her. Tell her she will be all right. If she doesn't get better, call me back. Anne had never in her whole life held her mother's hand. Her mother always held her hand. But Anne did it. She had no choice. But from then on, she always hated blonde furniture. The end.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kathy. That was great.
Yep.
Fantastic dramatization, and you just captured that young girl's perspective so well in there. It's beautiful. That is. Sorry about the confusion there with Dave. We'll get him after Bob reads here. So, so next reader coming to you right from Port Alberni, not from Char's Landing tonight. Looks like Joyce had to lend you her tablet there. Bob Frankow, aka Joe Lunchbucket, take it away there. Oh, you'll need to unmute yourself though, Bob. There you go.
How's that?
Can you do it? You got it?
Yep. COVID-19 created 50 billionaires marketing virus, aid, and vaccines. Did they have the means to engineer pandemic by splicing genes? If this is not God's intelligent design, how do we stop repeat acts? Is this another conspiracy? What are worst possible scenario facts? Will they keep reproducing new virus strains for financial gains? Can the rich escape justice? Do they fund US political campaigns? Are homeless and workers losing lives and jobs collateral damage? Is it a survival of the fittest contest played out on world stage? Are perpetrators evil? Do they differ from CEOs and heads of state? Do all concentrate to elevate their bottom line and real estate? Do mafia dons rate compared to oil wars that made US great? Okay, there's another one here, a little more cheery. You've been away all day and I don't know what doing. You had no money but came home loaded. Were you screw? And you still got looks and think you're sitting on a honey pot, but flies view Prince Charming, but bet a drunken sot. Is searching for true love amidst alkies a big mistake, like divulging bitter truth about the stiff at his wake. Frogs come in all genders, and a pumpkin's no chariot. Do harlots come in guise of friend like Judas Iscariot? True beauty withstands sands of time and grows tenfold. Have sparkles and glitter, always panned out silver and gold. Missionarying to luscious followers of Bacchus, a lesser god, will they see the light, or is conversion with a cattle prod? Can it be a genetic cross that all addicted souls bear? Are they spirit codependent, like believers in prayer? Must the poor forever be with us, as Christ had said? Can work quotas coerce addicts to earn their daily bread? Must workers' urine tests endure and diabetes drugs procure? Are injection sites for the self-afflicted 21st century cure? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Love that line Jackie posted, divulging truth about a drunk at his wake. Sweet. Okay, I see some people are having to scuttle off, so I just want to mention again, before we go on with the next reader, that Char's Landing desperately needs support. If you feel generous to just e-transfer at charslanding.com, and she'd welcome any help that she can get to keep her roof above her head in these times until we can open them up again. So Jackie's posted that in the chat, I see. So if you're having to look for it, it's there, e-transfer at charslanding.com. Okay, now David at Gibsons, BC, we'll get you to read, and sorry about that confusion there, man. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And for Joe Lunchbucket, you remind me of Brecht saying, when he said, how bad is a bank robber really compared to a man who founds a bank? Okay, this is a little 5-minute story. Out of the blue, Rachel remembered the kick of the shotgun. She pressed the button of a theodolite to freeze the reading and was penciling the angle into a logbook when something made her pause. The road ran straight as a die, and flat too, as it should on these wetlands, waterfowl country. Rank grass and reeds over where the estuary crept inland from the North Sea, turning the water brackish. Nothing between here and Holland but wind and birds. Bang! There it was again, a hunter somewhere out on the flats. Her survey crew's yellow vests and their caution signs and the ribbons on this, the only road, announced their presence. Little danger to them today from guns. Back when Rachel had turned 14, she had consigned her BB gun to a younger brother and felt ready for the next stage. Tom Blake's old single-barrel shotgun slept in a wood and canvas case behind a cupboard in the boot room. Rachel drew it out and sniffed. The fine oil around the breech was clear, unlike the harsh oils of her father's garage. She weighed a cartridge in her hand, rolling it to and fro, trying to sense the danger and the death she knew was in it. Then she took a breath and called out to her father on the forecourt, "Can I fire the shotgun, Dad?" Tom Blake had stepped into the house and looked down at her for a long moment. She stood her ground and looked back at him. "Okay, come over to the quarry, I'll show you how." Rachel felt a cold breath move inside her, like her first time on the top diving board. At the quarry, Tom made her watch while he opened the gun and said, "Empty, safe, loaded, kills." Rachel was scared by the new urgency in her father's face. Tom loaded the gun, snapped its shot, and looked at her again. Then he swung the barrel straight at the limestone cliff and fired. Her stomach and her legs flinched under her skirt. It was like a smack. Her father extracted the spent cartridge and loaded the next. Your turn. She tilted the cheek against the smooth stock. Hug it tight. The harder you hug it, the less it'll hurt. The same as with your BB gun, remember? Breathe in, little pressure, breathe out and pull. Rachel's shot blew dust from the cliff and she staggered back a foot, her ears ringing. Are you okay? Yes, fine. She waited to test the moment. Then, Dad, could I shoot a bird or something? Tom looked steadily at her. Do you want to? Well, Mickey Ferris said I should shoot birds. People do. You've shot crows. What would it be like? Tom Blake shook his head. I don't know. I'm not you. Sure, let's see if the birds have settled again. They picked their way around the rocky floor of the quarry until they spotted a crow busy on open ground, pecking and looking, pecking and looking. Rachel spread her feet, angled one hip, and hugged the gun into her shoulder. She squinted at the crow, and it swiveled to look back at her. Rachel breathed in and out and pulled. The shotgun had kicked and a target had exploded in dark feathers. When the spicy blue smoke drifted away, Rachel had walked shakily over to face her undignified work. It had been easy. The bird had just stood there, living. She looked up at her father and said, that wasn't fair. Tom squeezed her skinny shoulder. You can't know until you do something. It's okay. On their drive back to the village, Rachel had been silent. She had pressed her forehead against the truck's half-open window, picking at a bobby pin, seeing afresh the birds on the trees and telephone lines and in flight. Now ragged clouds hurried overhead, and she shook herself inside her work jacket, blew the whistle twice, signaling her survey crew to pack up and return to the van. Finn Rafferty was first, rubber boots flapping with his bow-legged stride, his leveling rod slung loosely like a carbine across his shoulders, always the cowboy. Hey, Finn, you want to learn some history about guns? He grinned and shrugged. From an English woman? What the hell? Go on then. 300 years ago, said Rachel, Oliver Cromwell fought King Charles in the Civil War, right? Puritans against royalists, you've heard all that. Finn Rafferty shook his head. Cromwell, and spat between his boots. Well, Cromwell had to invent his own army from scratch. He was a big landowner all round him, miles and miles of fenland and marshland. Rachel swept her arm around. Do you see those birds skimming the water? Know what they are? Finn laughed and settled on the van's running board. With the long beaks. Yeah, they're snipe. Quick little buggers, aren't they? We've plenty in Ireland. Rachel nodded. Well, Cromwell couldn't match the king's cavalry, all their fine horsemen, so he had to rely on guns for his men. Muskets, you know. He needed all were the poachers who crept out on his marshes shooting snipe. If you can hit a snipe, you're a bloody good shot. What do you think they called them, the men who hunted snipe? Finn rocked back against the van laughing. I don't believe it. Is that so? God damn you English, you do it every time. Is that the truth then, where that word comes from? That's it, said Rachel. Hear that guy out there? Maybe he's one. Finn squinted up at her. Did you ever do much shooting yourself, Rachel? You're a country girl, aren't you? Without thinking, Rachel touched her shoulder. She frowned into the freshening salt breeze, her eyes damp. Only once, just the one time, that's all. It wasn't for me. The end.
Super. Thank you very much. That was great, Dave. Karl, help me out here. I don't think we have any other. Oh, we do. We have one more reader?
No?
Oh, I got a
No.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have one from Char's Island. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah, Derek. John Skip is a Club Char friend, and he's come up from Victoria. He's got family in town. He's visiting, and he's staying downstairs, so I invited him up. He's a poet.
Oh, wonderful. Take it away. Go ahead.
Thanks. This is very inspiring to hear the works of some very accomplished writers and poets. I, on the other hand, am a first-timer. This is the first time I read my work to anyone but my son. This is a poem called The Dreamer. A beautiful dream fades away. I'm snuggled, warm, but can't stay. I must arise and go to work. There's a job to do, I mustn't shirk. Showered, combed, teeth brushed, can't delay, must rush. Down the road to job I hate, but have to do and can't be late. But other cars don't care about that. They cut me off and hold me back. I finally arrive at the parking lot and cruise the rows, hunt for a spot. Coffee in hand and good mornings said, I take my place, emails read. 4 hours work to begin the day, while in my mind, I'm far away. 30-minute lunch break, time enough to eat, but not recuperate. 4 more hours to the bell. It's just a job, not living hell. I must work to earn my pay, but still, in my mind, I'm far away. Driving home by my usual route, another guy in a business suit. Dinner done and plates away, I watch some dumb show or 2 teams play. Teeth brushed and hair astray, I lie in bed and reflect on the day. Life's not bad, just dull it seems. Closed eyes, welcome, blessed dreams. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think you need to be reading more of your poems. That's wonderful.
I've got a couple more I'm working on. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So I'm going to close out, I guess, the reading tonight with a poem that I had in the Old Bones and Battered Bookends anthology. And I just want to remind everybody that Ian has posted some links in the chat about how to get that book, and also The Sky is Falling, that Sheila Martindale is bringing out, launching on Zoom on Tuesday night. She's posted a link for those who want to come and listen to that reading. And yeah, and we'll say some thank yous and then say good night. So my poem was called A Little Fight, and it's dedicated to Winston Joseph, who was kind of an institution at the high school in Port Alberni for many years, an English teacher there, came from Jamaica or Trinidad, I should say. And he unfortunately developed Alzheimer's, and well, I'll just read you the poem. It's called A Little Fight. This is what he said to me. Hard to see these withered shoulders, the troubled stare. From you whom we called Mr. Positive, the burly black man with the Pepsodent smile, who recited Shakespeare's soliloquies by heart. Oh, honorable man. Oh, keeper of eternal hope and wonder, who scans the newspaper daily now, searching for a cheap ticket home. They keep you wired so the alarm sounds every time you edge toward the heavy doors, convinced that freedom can't be far away. You take your tepid meals with the others, praise the peas for the robust green, then 5 minutes on forget that you have eaten. But when we talk, you ask about my sons, still recall the stout one you taught to love language, and tell me, not long now, though a little fight at the end is good. I remember once Irene found herself giving blood next to you and asked your blood type. Oh, positive, you replied. And why were none of us surprised? Now you push against the nurses urging you to sit. Insist you found a ticket at last and must go home to Trinidad, but not without a little fight. A little fight at the end is good. So I want to thank all of the readers and the listeners who came here tonight and made for such a rich and variety-filled evening of really, really excellent work. And I mean that with all my heart to everyone who read tonight. I think there was some wonderful, wonderful stuff there. So before we go, I just want to also thank Char at Char's Landing for being our most wonderful host again. There she is. Hello, Char, and thank you, thank you, thank you.
That was a fantastic evening. Congratulations, everyone. And we got done on time, but thanks to those
my
that
gosh.
came from other time zones. Wow.
Yeah.
They really are hardcore and really enriched our evening. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thanks to Derek and Karl and Jacqueline as well. You guys are incredible.
Yeah, well, and Mike, our photographer, let's not forget him. Yeah, it takes a team to put things together, and certainly everybody pulls their weight, so it makes it so it's not too onerous for anyone, which is great. So thank you all for coming, and a reminder again that if you can find time to e-transfer at charslanding.com, whatever you can spare, Char would welcome, I'm sure. And also, please come again. We're the third Thursday of every month, or Friday of every month, I should say, at the Electric Mermaid, and you can find us on charslanding.com on the website, and you can email Karl to get on the readers list if you want again. And Karl, you put that email
It's in the
address.
chat.
Yeah.
I put it there a few times in the chat.
In the chat, yeah, so everything's there in the chat. If you need to scroll back and forth through there, this will stay on for a little while longer as we close down and people leave. Thank you again, everyone, for coming. Stay safe out there. Keep on writing, and hope you come back again to the Electric Mermaid and share some more of your work, or come back and have a listen, spend some time with us here through Char's Landing. Good night.
You're unmuted. You can say anything.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you want his books, you can go also, if you didn't get to copy the chat, you can go on to charslanding.com, and all the stuff to do with all Teresa's books and Ian's books, or tonight's books are in that too.
Awesome. Thanks, Karl.
Thank you,
Thank
Derek.
you, everyone.
Thank you, Char.
Excellent
Thank you,
evening.
Ian.
Thanks, Daniela.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Nice to meet
Good
everyone.
night, Dave. Good night, Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Oh my God.